Chapter 91, could not bear for her to shed a single tear. Gu Jingze said, if you make a mistake, I will punish you. As he said that, he kissed her on the lips once again. Punish you with a kiss. Under the moonlight, Lin Che's face turned bright red. She looked sullenly at Gu Jingze. Nobody does that, Gu Jingze. Her contempt brought out Gu Jingze's smile. Smirking at her, his cheeks began to soften. Lin Che was stunned. He looked beautiful smiling like that. A man who usually never revealed his expression was now suddenly smiling. It was extraordinarily beautiful. Lin Che was dazed. Gu Jingze inched closer to her. Lin Che, why are you staring at me? Lin Che jolted. Nobody is staring at you. How can that be? I can see it crystal clear. Why, am I that good looking? Gu Jingze moved closer as Lin Che tried to hide her expression. Before she realized it, his body was already at her side. The space in the car was tight. Gu Jingze had one hand on the steering wheel and the other on the back of her car seat. His chest was awkwardly positioned such that Lin Che was right in the center. Gu Jingze drew closer to look at Lin Che's face and thought that her cheeks were very delicate. Up close, he could not see a single flaw on her face. In fact, she looked better and better. At home, she usually did not wear makeup or apply anything. The flawless skin on her face was so clean that it was irresistible to kiss. He looked at her with amusement. Tell me, am I good looking? You, Gu Jingze, you're shameless. There's no need to hide anything between a husband and wife, right? Gu Jingze lowered his head and observed her expression. Lin Che then realized that he had moved so close to her that he was already right in front of her. Her chest was almost touching his. She constricted her breathing. Gu Jingze persisted. Are you going to admit that you were staring at me because I'm good looking or not? Lin Che felt that she was being pressured until she almost could not breathe. She said in a flurry, yes, you're good looking. You're the most good looking person. Gu Jingze was not satisfied as he looked at her perfunctory appearance. You're not even sincere about it. Fine. You're the best looking man, Gu Jingze. You're the most handsome man I've ever seen. You're more handsome than any other man. Lin Che quickly said with a hand on her chest. Gu Jingze pressed on, really? Then tell me who is more good looking, me or Jingyu? Lin Che had never come across such a narcissistic man like him who compared himself to his own brother. You're more good looking. Are you satisfied now? She said this even though Lin Che found Gu Jingze slightly better looking. Perhaps it was because Gu Jingyu did not have the type of charisma that Gu Jingze had, even though Gu Jingyu looked pristine. That deep, intense way he looked at people as if he was going to suck their souls in. Gu Jingze nodded in satisfaction. At least she had good taste. Then what about? He lowered his head and looked at her deeply. He asked hesitantly, then tell me who is better looking, me or Qin Qing? Lin Che's face immediately stiffened. The intelligent Gu Jingze naturally knew that the answer this time would be different. His eyes darkened and bored right through Lin Che. Tell me. Lin Che understood that Qin Qing was not as handsome as Gu Jingze. Qin Qing was the boy next door. When people saw him, they thought of Prince Charming. On the other hand, Gu Jingze was like a knight. At night, when you needed him the most, he would appear silently. He was like a hero in anyone's eyes. However, there was something about him that could never be revealed in the light. It made people feel gloomy, melancholic, and unable to penetrate through the night. Handsome, sexy, but different. Gu Jingze already knew. He grabbed her wrist and with one swoop, pulled her over onto himself. Lin Che uncontrollably let out a sound, feeling his dark eyes on her like the endless night sky that slowly engulfed her. Gu Jingze stared at her face, hugging her. As she sat on top of him, she looked so shy. Her slight resistance seemed to ignite a passionate fire in him, a burning desire. He lowered his head, hugged her, and then forcefully pressed his lips against hers. Lin Che exclaimed and pushed his shoulder away. Gu Jingze wrapped his arms tightly around her. When he let go of her, he muttered, don't you think it's exciting in the car? Lin Che said in a fluster, I don't want to do this, Gu Jingze. Let go of me. Her clothes became undone in the chaos and she revealed herself in front of him. Amidst the chaos, Lin Che looked all around. She pressed the car horn and made a loud, piercing sound. Gu Jingze immediately loosened his grip around her waist. Lin Che broke into tears. Seeing her red eyes, Gu Jingze's heart sank. He frowned and let her down gently. Looking at her messy clothes, he pulled them together. Lin Che felt he was like a monster at that moment. It was frightening. She turned her head and angrily ignored him. She looked down to tidy her clothes, catching her breath and not saying a word. Gu Jingze took a deep breath and looked at her. His eyes shifted down to his aroused area and he smiled bitterly. Helplessly scowling as he looked at her, he said, "If you still like Chin Ching, you can actually tell him. It's a waste if you can't tell someone that you like them." Lin Che was speechless as she looked at Gu Jingze. Her eyes moved as she said, "I won't tell him. In fact, come to think about it, that was all in the past. I don't really like him now, it's just that when you liked someone before, you'll still care about them somewhat." Gu Jingze raised an eyebrow and turned to Lin Che. Lin Che looked up. "Don't you know that the human heart is made of flesh? Just because a person can't get the one they like and decided not to like them anymore, doesn't mean that the person can just completely forget about him and treat him like a stranger." Gu Jingze looked at her and shook his head. The mood became a lot better. The lesson did not progress much more. Gu Jingze promised to teach her slowly, but she did not want him to teach her anymore. He was a scary instructor. When they got home, Lin Che received a call from the company. Yu Minmin spoke to her excitedly over the phone. "You've been nominated for Panda TV Festival's Best Newcomer Award. Be prepared, we may be going to the award ceremony." Lin Che was pleasantly surprised. Chapter 92. The whole company was happy. Panda TV Festival was one of the country's most prestigious awards ceremonies. It was difficult to get nominated for an award. A few 100 million people watched it every year. It was naturally different. Yu Minmin was also very happy. She quickly brought Lin Che to the company and started selecting her formal attire. Yu Minmin especially went to search for some reliable sponsors. The products were all of good quality. Out of all the actresses who Yu Minmin managed, Lin Che was now her most capable actress, so she was pouring all her energy into making Lin Che shine. In the company, Yu Minmin had fought for a private room for Lin Che. In the private room, Yu Minmin handed the festival's invitation to Lin Che. "This was just sent over today. Those in the upper levels are also very happy for you. However, some of the other nominees this year also have potential. There's one that obviously slept their way up, so don't mind that person." The list included all the nominees. Lin Che saw Lin Li's name up for the Fashionista Award. It looked like she would have to see her there. Lin Che spoke excitedly, "I honestly never thought that I would get in. I only acted one role and it was a supporting role. Gu Jingze's television series is popular every year, so you were part of a popular show. That's one reason to be nominated. Secondly, your role was very likable. Third, your acting was very good." Lin Che looked at Yu Minmin speechlessly. "Sister Yu, can't you praise me in a better way? You just had to put that right at the end." As they met every day, Lin Che's relationship with Yu Minmin improved a lot and their conversations were not so restrained anymore. Yu Minmin said, "I'm telling the truth. What you have today is also partly contributed by luck, so you better not get too arrogant, you hear me?" "Got it. But your efforts did accumulate and pay off. You deserve to be nominated. I believe the other worthy nominees didn't act as well as you. I think you might have a good chance at winning." Lin Che smiled shyly and covered her cheeks as she said embarrassingly, "That's impossible." Yu Minmin replied, "I mean it. Do you think you're still a small actress? You are now a new star. The company is preparing to focus on grooming you." I still can't get used to it. This is the first time I got so successful." "Me too, actually. You're the first actress under me to be this successful," Yu Minmin said. Lin Che looked at Yu Minmin in disbelief. "Sister, you had so many famous artists last time." Yu Minmin said, "That is because I worked here for a long time. I started working here as an assistant at the moment I graduated. From an assistant, I moved to be a personal assistant, then to a public manager, and then to a personal manager. I've been here for 8 years. It's a pity that it takes luck to meet an artist with great potential. I played a safe game and never thought of poaching artists from other managers. As a result, all my artists were either pure newcomers or angry old artists. She patted Lin Che on the shoulder, so, it's a first for both of us. Let's work hard together. Yes, let's work hard together. Lin Che suddenly realized that she previously thought that managers were all high and mighty as they always called the shots and decided the fates of small artists. However, now she realized that these managers actually did not have such an easy job. When the two of them stepped out, the small artists outside saw Lin Che and bowed their heads and greeted her, "Hello, Sister Lin Che." They waited for Lin Che to walk past before lifting their heads back up. Lin Che knew that in the circle, hierarchy and results were most important. In the past, she would also hide at the side whenever a popular star walked past before continuing her way. Now, she was the one getting this special treatment. It honestly felt a little strange. Lin Che remarked, "Honestly, I only acted in one role. They don't have to treat me like this." Yu Minmin smiled and replied, "But you've already gone up the ranks. Also, you've been on a few headlines and you're a highly raved actress this year. Everybody in the company knows you." Lin Che never thought that she would become so well known so quickly. Just then, as they got to the door, an old man suddenly rushed over in front of them. Lin Che almost jumped in fear. However, the old man did not really bother Lin Che. Rather, he faced Yu Minmin and kneeled down. Lin Che covered her mouth in shock. She looked at Yu Minmin, who was calm, but also suddenly a little dazed. The old man hugged Yu Minmin's legs and exclaimed, "Minmin, you have to help me. I'm really going to die this time. If you don't help me, I'm really going to leave our house and become homeless." This ragged, dirty-looking old man turned out to be Yu Minmin's father. Lin Che was also stunned. Yu Minmin bit her lips as she looked at her father. She pushed him away and said curtly, "I told you that this was the last time I was going to help you. What did you do now? Did you lose money again?" "Dad, I have no money anymore. Not a single cent. This is my workplace, please stay away or I might lose my job." "Who will you go to for money then?" While he was still on the ground, the old man looked up. "Minmin, I didn't lose money this time. It was because of those bastards. They said that I didn't give them enough money. They said that I was 30,000 yuan short and that if I don't give it to them, they were going to take your mother away to be a cook. I got scared, so. Yu Minmin frowned, "So what?" "So I kidnapped the young master's woman from the Lu family and threatened them. Who knew that I would accidentally hit her head and she would have to go to the hospital? Now, they want to sue me. I'm really done for this time." "What?" Yu Minmin changed her frown to a smile. She looked at her own father in amusement. "You're really something. Now, besides gambling, you also beat other people up." Let go of me. I don't care about this. You might as well go to prison or you'll continue dragging my mother and us down." Yu Minmin pushed her father away from her legs. The old man fell on the ground. People were looking at them with curiosity. The old man saw and suddenly flailed angrily on the ground. He pointed his finger at Yu Minmin and scolded her, "What kind of person are you? I'm your father, how can you treat me like this? I raised you and fed you. Now that you're so capable, you don't want us anymore, is that it? I'm a burden to you. Fine, don't care about me. Since you don't care about me, I'm staying put right at your company's entrance." Yu Minmin was speechless. Staring at him coldly, she waved to the security guards, "There's a man loitering here and hindering our work. Please take him out." The security guards quickly went over to take him out. The old man shouted tragically. Each time, his voice went higher and higher. Lin Che could not look on and hurriedly took Yu Minmin away from there. The onlookers talked amongst themselves, their eyes seemed to be judging Yu Minmin. Father Yu was chased out but he was still wandering outside. Lin Che watched him and said to Yu Minmin, "Go back with me first. If you go back to your home now, your dad will definitely find you." Yu Minmin looked at Lin Che gratefully, "Okay. Thank you." Lin Che gestured for the chauffeur to drive back to the GU residence. Chapter 93. You promised to cook for me. In the car, Lin Che looked at Yu Minmin stare out the window. She pondered a while before saying, "Your father can't go on like this. Yu Minmin laughed bitterly, nothing can be done about it. Gambling has already become his life. I've heard him say that he would quit for almost my entire life, yet he's still causing trouble every day. It's okay, I'm already used to it. Lin Che had always been Yu Minmin's artist, but she was only a small one back then. It was different now. It was as if Yu Minmin was now her personal manager, so they were together every day. As a result, she came to know of Yu Minmin's family background. Lin Che patted Yu Minmin's shoulder, there must be a way. Yu Minmin looked at Lin Che and shook her head, unless I take my mother and brother away from here, I don't think there's any other way to shake off this parasite. Lin Che comforted her, okay, we'll think of something when we get home. Don't worry, we'll find a way. Soon, they arrived at the Gu residence. Yu Minmin had never seen the Gu residence. From the outside, she saw some strict-looking guards and thought that it was a bad idea. She turned to Lin Che and asked, can I go in? The Gu family probably doesn't let outsiders in, right? Lin Che replied, I don't think so. It should be fine, but I never brought in anyone before. At the entrance, the security guard looked at Yu Minmin and then politely greeted Lin Che, Madam. After that, he let them in. Yu Minmin sat still. She noticed their respectful greeting. However, she turned to Lin Che but did not ask anything. She was the manager but she usually didn't probe where there was no need to probe about personal matters of the artist. She only did that when it affected their job. That was a manager's work ethic. When they entered, Yu Minmin then saw the enormous house and the subtly elegant decor. Standing in the living room, she could not help but say to Lin Che, your house is like a palace. Lin Che replied, yes. When I first got here, I always got lost because there were too many turns. It looks complicated but after walking a bit, you'll get used to it. Yu Minmin remarked, I can't believe this is Gu Jingze's place. Why? Lin Che looked at her. Yu Minmin smiled and said, a commoner wouldn't be able to come in but I get to bask in your light. Lin Che smiled, is that so? To think there'd be a day when someone gets to bask in my light. Of course. Just then, Yu Minmin's phone rang. She bent her head to answer the call. It was from her mother. Her mother was crying on the other end, please just help your father, Minmin. Only you can help in this family, nobody else is capable enough. See if you know anybody who can talk to them. You only have one father. If anything happens to him, won't you regret it? Yu Minmin's fingernails dug into her palm as if the pain would make her feel better. Fine, I'll think of something, Yu Minmin could only plainly say to her sobbing mother. When she hung up, she closed her eyes and tilted her head up. She looked at the Gu residence's sprawling ceiling and sighed. Lin Che said, Sister Yu, who are they? Let's think of something, there must be a way. Yu Minmin replied, it's the Liu family who runs a moneylending business and underground gambling dens in the B market. My father has been dealing with them for many years. To put it bluntly, they are not good people. I'll go talk to them and then we'll see what we can do. What are you going to do tonight? I'll get a hotel room so my father can't find me for the time being. Don't worry, I've lived like this for many years, so I know what to do. Protecting myself is my strong suit. All right. Yu Minmin booked a hotel room through her phone. Lin Che arranged for a car to send her there. Later, her phone rang. She saw Gu Jingze's name appear. She smiled and picked it up. When are you going to fulfill your promise and cook me a meal? Lin Che thought he was joking when he said that, but now that he brought it up, she reluctantly answered, fine. I'm waiting for you to come back so we can go buy ingredients. Okay, wait for me then. I'm reaching soon. When Gu Jingze heard that she was going to buy ingredients to cook for him, he could not wait and hurried home. He arrived quickly and pulled Lin Che out, let's go to the market. You're coming along? Of course. But, Lin Che remembered Mo Hilling's warning the other day, isn't it dangerous for you to go out? Gu Jingze looked at Lin Che strangely, why do you say that? Lin Che said, it's just that the other day, Mo Hilling told me that it's dangerous for you to go out on your own. Mo Hilling? A look of unhappiness flashed across his face. He said to Lin Che, there's danger wherever I go. Does that mean I have to be locked up in a cage, just to avoid the danger? Let's go. As he said, his hand held onto Lin Che's and he took her out. Lin Che wanted to say something else, but looking at him, she decided it was best not to. She looked down at his hand on hers and wanted to pull away, but she did not. His grip seemed to tighten. She saw that the maids were still looking, so she did not want to struggle too much. There were not many people at the market. Lin Che thought, it was strange as it was usually crowded. It was like a street with limits as the crowd was small and orderly. Lin Che pushed the shopping cart and looked at Gu Jingze write down a recipe. She remarked depressingly, so demanding. That recipe looks complicated. Gu Jingze asked, this is complicated. It's just chopping up and stir-frying a few ingredients. He specially chose a less costly recipe. Lin Che pushed the cart and walked around to look at the vegetables. A huge supermarket really made one feel blissful. Lin Che was full of smiles and seemed very relaxed. I want one of this. And one of this. Ah, the radish looks fresh. The more she added things into the cart, the messier it got. She had completely ignored the recipe's ingredients list. Gu Jingze only shook his head helplessly. Just then, a passerby knocked the back of her heel with the shopping cart's wheel. Lin Che yelped. She looked up to see a man look at her before turning away silently. Lin Che thought unhappily, what an immoral guy. However, Gu Jingze grabbed hold the arm of the man who just turned away. Holding the man's arm, Gu Jingze pressed him against a shelf. The man was shocked and wanted to swear at him, but looking at Gu Jingze's deep eyes, he felt guilty and shut his mouth. Apologize to my wife, he said. The man looked at Lin Che. Although he was unwilling, he feared Gu Jingze and said humbly, sorry. I didn't notice. Lin Che rubbed her heel, it's okay. Just be careful next time. Gu Jingze grunted and then let the man go. The man slipped away quickly. Lin Che was about to get up from the ground, but Gu Jingze squatted down beside her and scooped her up in his arms. The passers-by looked at them in envy. This strong and tall man would make anyone become infatuated with him. Gu Jingze carried her and put her in the shopping cart. Let me see if your leg is okay. Lin Che shook her head. She smiled as she looked at Gu Jingze, I'm okay. The impact from a cart is not that great. It's just that the man's attitude was infuriating. Chapter 94. Clumsily cut her hand. Gu Jingze bent down and took off her shoe to inspect her foot. With her foot in his hand, Lin Che felt embarrassed, it stinks. I've been wearing shoes for the whole day and I didn't wash my feet. Gu Jingze glanced up at her, it's fine. It has even been on my face before and I never said anything. If it bothered me, I would have thrown you off the bed. Lin Che smiled as she looked at him, so why aren't you bothered by it? Gu Jingze patted her foot, there's no point in being bothered when I'm living with an uncultured person like you. It's better to get used to it. As he talked, he helped put on her shoe. Lin Che stayed in the shopping cart. She turned back smiling at Gu Jingze and said, push me. I'm not getting down. Gu Jingze remarked, lazy egg. Although he sounded unwilling, he had already begun pushing her. She sat in the cart and directed Gu Jingze to buy things. I want the eggplants over there. Ah, I want some chips. Gu Jingze, push faster. There's some discount over there. Lin Che was chirping away while Gu Jingze pushed her with resentment. The two of them went around the supermarket aisles happily. It was a sight that made people sigh with envy. Some people commented, see how someone else's boyfriend dotes on his girlfriend. You envy them, but you need to consider how they look first. See, the girl is so pretty. If that was my girlfriend, I'd also dote on her like that. Get lost. You didn't see how the boyfriend looked like. He's so handsome. Hey, talking about him, he does look a bit familiar. I thought the girl looked familiar. Anyway, both of them are so good looking. They match so perfectly. Lin Che held no bars as she shopped. Very quickly, they left with 3 full big bags. Gu Jingze had difficulty going out. He discreetly stopped the ushers outside, took his 3 bags, and walked towards his car. Lin Che offered, let me take one. Gu Jingze refused, with your little arms and legs, forget it. Lin Che pouted, but watching him, a big and strong man, carry the 3 bags swiftly to the car and throwing them all in the trunk, she thought that he looked charismatic and manly. Lin Che smiled warmly and sat in the car. Back home, as she was about to begin cooking, she became depressed again. She put on an apron with professionalism, but when it came to cutting the vegetables, she had butter fingers. Gu Jingze looked from the side and silently wanted to help her. Especially whenever the knife came down towards her hand, he felt his temples suddenly jump along. Okay, let me help you cut the vegetables, he quickly walked over and said. No need, I'm doing it just fine. See, I think my knife skills are getting better. My learning ability is really high. Ouch. Her tone fell. The knife had made a cut on her fingertip. She dropped the knife on the floor. Fortunately, it was a small knife so it did not bounce off. Even so, anyone would have felt scared seeing it drop. Gu Jingze rushed over to her side and held up her hand. Blood was flowing out from the opening. Gu Jingze tugged her finger. You are really. I told you not to cut anymore. As he spoke, he directly put her finger into his mouth. Lin Che's finger hurt. She looked at his brows as he sucked on her finger. It felt warm. She felt the tip of his tongue brush gently against her finger. Lin Che stood still and watched him. Looking into his black eyes, her face became hot. Dirty, Lin Che thought. It must be dirty from handling all the vegetables. Gu Jingze sucked once and let go of her hand. He bent his head to look closely. He turned around to fetch the first aid kit. Then, he applied a band-aid on her finger. Lin Che looked at the perfectly taped band-aid and then looked at the obsessive-compulsive disorder patient. Gu Jingze frowned and pushed her aside. That's enough. Stand aside. You're so clumsy. Don't move around. Lin Che said, the food. Gu Jingze snorted and looked at the recipe. I'll do it. Ah, I feel bad. Lin Che was more than happy to skip cooking, but she looked at him appeasingly. Gu Jingze picked up the knife and cut the vegetables. He glanced up at Lin Che and said, I'm afraid that if I let you continue, you're going to burn down the whole kitchen. Lin Che pouted, it was all your fault. You talked me into doing this. Gu Jingze glanced at her again, you're just stupid, don't make excuses. Gu Jingze's movements were swift. He cut the ingredients while looking at the recipe. The ingredients he cut looked exactly the same as in the recipe. He said as he cooked, you still did such a poor job following a recipe. Your brain is really dumb. Lin Che observed the way he cooked. He was like a role model. She had no way to retaliate. Lin Che leaned against the counter, appreciating this charismatic Gu Jingze's swift and flawless movements. She said, right, do you still remember my manager, Yu Minmin? Of course I do. What do you mean of course? You think everybody has poor a memory like you. I have a great memory. Lin Che felt he really looked down on her all the time. Lin Che continued, something happened to Yu Minmin recently. Gu Jingze asked as he stir-fried, what happened? Lin Che briefly explained to him and added, I think Sister Yu is so capable. How so? Her family is messy, but she's still so proactive in her work. She gives her best effort so that no one knows how terrible her life at home is. I think this is what a professional person should be like, separating personal life from work. If I hadn't been working this closely with her recently, I would never have known what happened to her either. Gu Jingze thought deeply and his action slowed down slightly. However, he quickly picked it up again. Soon, he plated the dish. Gu Jingze said, here, try this. Lin Che looked at it. It looked pretty good. She took her chopsticks and hesitantly took a bite. She did not expect it to taste so good. Lin Che turned to Gu Jingze in surprise, don't tell me you know how to cook. Gu Jingze replied, it's my first time. Impossible. Gu Jingze wiped his hands with a wet cloth and went to prepare the next dish. I followed every step of the recipe closely. Of course, it should not go wrong. But I've tried before and whatever I made was bad. Then the problem is not the recipe. It's you. You're too dumb, so it can't be helped. Quote ellipsis quote. Chapter 95. Do you feel disappointed? Lin Che ate and watched Gu Jingze with admiration. She never thought that he would be this capable. It was his first time cooking and he produced a dish that was exactly like what was stated in the recipe. It looked like having an obsessive-compulsive disorder had benefits. Lin Che could not deny that Gu Jingze was smarter than the average person. Whatever he did was exemplary. Whatever he learned it fast. In comparison, she was a lot dumber. Lin Che thought, no wonder he always called her dumb. He stood there holding a spatula and wearing an apron, it made him look like a house husband. A handsome man cooking in an apron was extremely charming and irresistible. Lin Che leaned her head and looked admiringly at this beautiful, appetizing scene. She rested her chin on her hand and stared in obsession. Gu Jingze said as he cooked, actually, your manager's problem is really easy to solve. Huh. I can help. Ah, is that so? Lin Che quickly said, really? That would be great, Gu Jingze, thanks for offering to help. Gu Jingze turned to her and smiled plainly, you know the gratitude I want is never just words. Quote. Gu Jingze dished up another plate with speed and walked over. He looked at Lin Che and then hugged her from behind. Lin Che was shocked as she heard Gu Jingze speak next to her ear, actually, you look really good in the apron. Since you didn't finish cooking, you should at least reward me for my hard work. He blew at her ear and made Lin Che's ear itch uncomfortably. Lin Che replied, what reward do you want? Gu Jingze said in a low voice, I want to see you wearing just this apron. Lin Che pictured it in her head, it would be like a dirty magazine. So revealing. Lin Che immediately resisted, get lost, Gu Jingze. You stinky gangster. Gu Jingze laughed as she pushed him away. He quickly shunned from her. However, from the start just now, he had already observed her wearing the apron. He thought that if she walked around the house in just that, she would look great. Although the image was too embarrassing, he really anticipated it deep down. Lin Che imagined herself in such a scenario and thought that this man was just too evil. Get lost. No way I would do that. Hey, what are you running away for? Come back here, Gu Jingze pulled Lin Che back. Grabbing her waist, he hoisted her onto the table. Lin Che shouted. Even as she sat high on the table, her face was still right in front of his chest. Looking up, she could only see his lower jaw. He lowered his head slightly and looked at her face. He took off his apron and put it on her. Okay, he smiled and looked at her. That was it. Lin Che looked down speechlessly at herself and the apron. There was no difference. She looked weirdly at herself. The man standing in front of her had his hands placed loosely on her waist. His head was lowered as he watched her. Ah, you wanted me to wear an apron. I thought you meant just the apron by itself, Lin Che said. Gu Jingze answered, just wearing an apron meant just letting you wear an apron. That's it. He raised his brow suggestively as he looked down at her face, why? You look very disappointed. Was this not what you thought? As he stared her down like that, Lin Che started to feel embarrassed. Looking angrily at his mischievous smile, she thought resentfully, she had been tricked by him. Fine, this man was getting worse. Now, he was starting to play tricks with her. Lin Che's face was bright red as she looked at him. Gu Jingze pretended to act innocent, purposely raising his brow and asking, what were you thinking? Don't tell me, you were thinking. He intentionally looked her up and down and said, if you must do that, I can accept it too. Go away, I didn't say I wanted to do that. Come on, I won't be scared of you wearing that. Try it. Go away, do you still want to eat? The food is turning cold. Lin Che quickly jumped off the table, not letting him provoke her any further. Gu Jingze smiled as he watched her skip away. He shook his head and thought, this Lin Che may not know anything, but she's getting good at running away. However, after Gu Jingze told her he would help, he really went to search. The next day, Gu Jingze said to Lin Che, I found the person you mentioned. She's in the hospital, we can go over to take a look. Really? That's great. You're too good, Gu Jingze. Lin Che smiled and hugged his arm as she exclaimed. At the hospital. Yu Minmin's father, Yu Qinglong, was loitering outside. In the ward, the young master of the Liu family was gazing at his lover and carefully blowing at the porridge to cool it down as he fed her. "Nana, drink this. Be careful as it's hot." "Dear, why is that man still outside? Can't we chase him away? Who wants to see him? He should just compensate us. What a disgusting man." Liu Qinghong gritted his teeth and went out. He kicked Yu Qinglong in the chest. "Get lost. Looking at you disgusts me. Either get your daughter to sell herself or have your wife be a cook for the rest of her life, it's up to you. Why are you still here?" My daughter is not coming." Yu Qinglong's face was full of suffering. Ever since that day he looked her up at the office, she disappeared without a trace. He could not find her at all and was completely helpless. "Then get lost. Nobody wants to see your ugly face. Wait to spend the rest of your life in prison." Liu Qinghong closed the door. Yu Qinglong stared at the door with melancholy. The door opened again. Liu Qinghong turned around and yelled, "Who's here? Is this a place that you can just enter like this?" He looked up to see Lin Che in a black jumper and a pair of ripped skinny jeans. She looked dazzling. Looking at Lin Che's pretty face, his tone immediately softened. "Hey, what are you doing here?" Lin Che entered the room and saw a woman lying in bed. Beside her stood a tall and huge man. Nana saw Lin Che and her eyes suddenly became alert. As if feeling threatened, she quickly sat up. Gu Jingze followed quietly behind Lin Che as they entered the room, surprising everyone. Lin Che looked at the woman who did not forget to put makeup even on a hospital bed. She took a few steps forward and asked, "Was it you who caused the Yu family problems?" Liu Qinghong smiled, "That's right. Why, are you here because of that? He hit my horse, so now I want him to pay. That goes without saying, doesn't it?" Lin Che could not see a single injury on the woman. She glanced at the woman and asked, "How much do you want?" The man said without hesitation, "I want 5 million. Ha! Lin Che really had to hand it to them. How brazen. Since you're asking for 5 million, then her injury must be really serious. Chapter 96. Gu Jingze is extraordinary. The woman on the bed exclaimed, "What do you mean by that?" "It's literally what I meant." You, quote. Lin Che said, "The Yu family's problems are now my problems. I have money here. I'm giving you what Yu Minmin's father owes you, but for others, especially if it doesn't belong to the Yu family, you can forget about getting a single cent." Nana, who was lying on the bed, was naturally unwilling. The difference between 5 million and 200,000 was not small. She immediately sat up and said, "Don't think about it. 5 million and not a single cent less. Otherwise, I will put him in jail." Lin Che smiled, "You must have gone crazy thinking about money." At that moment, Gu Jingze looked at them from behind. "We are giving you this money so that you guys can shut up. If a simple method like this can't make you shut up, I have other ways to make you never speak again. Thus, you can either take the easy way or make the situation more complicated than this." The pair looked at each other and then looked at Gu Jingze. Their expressions changed. Nana wanted to get up and say something, but Liu Qinghong stopped her. With one look, he was able to tell that Gu Jingze was no ordinary person. From his custom-made clothes to his naturally flawless face, his aura seemed to suppress everyone in the room. His eyes turned and he realized that this man was definitely not a normal person. He probably would not be able to win against this man. Otherwise, he would not have come in alone in such a calm manner. The rest of the Liu family were on their way. They were aggressive too, but he probably would not be fazed by them either. Liu Qinghong immediately said, "That can be discussed, but may I know who this gentleman is?" Gu Jingze's eyes swept over him indifferently. "If you don't even know who I am, it's obvious that you're not qualified to stand here and talk to me." "You," Liu Qinghong's face darkened. Liu Qinghong wanted to scold him so badly, but he only looked helplessly at Gu Jingze, unable to say a word. "Do you not want to tell me, or is there just nothing much to say about you?" Liu Qinghong said with a smile. Gu Jingze replied, "These kinds of words are useless to me. I was planning to tell you that you may not be qualified to stand in front of me, but since you're involved in my woman's problems, I have to take care of this." As he talked, he threw an elegant business card in front of him. It landed perfectly on the table. Shocked, He bent down to look and his face immediately turned black. How did the Yu family get involved with a big shot like that? His face turned pale, but he still did not want to be defeated. He taunted, 5 million should be nothing to Mr. Gu. Why, can't you afford it? Gu Jingze scoffed, I earn every single dollar that I make. I don't wish to waste them on trash. You, he yelled, Gu Jingze, don't be arrogant. Some of that must be dirty money, right? Gu Jingze replied, as long as this little bit of dirty money can suppress you, it's enough. Lu Qinghong's eyes moved. In front of the Gu household, it was like throwing eggs at a stone. However, if he retreated now, they would be at a loss. Lin Che, who was observing at the side, added, we will only give you 200,000. Take it or leave it. That's not happening. Hey, who do you take us for, beggars? Lin Che said, with your behavior, you're not even beggars. Nana got up on the bed and yelled, you bitch. What did you say? I dare you to say it again. Lu Qinghong was shocked and quickly covered Nana's mouth. Nana was unsatisfied as she glared angrily at Lu Qinghong. Still holding on to Nana, Lu Qinghong said, she's not very understanding, but this matter was also partly the Yu family's fault. Gu Jingze said, if anything under the sky can be priced, then asking for 10 million for that word won't even be enough. What right do you have? Nana raised her voice. Lu Qinghong's face got even paler. He hastily agreed, fine, I want 200,000. As he said that, he took the check on the table. Lin Che looked at him and then said, but I still must warn you. The 200,000 is to pay off the Yu family's debt. You are not to step 1 foot near the Yu family. If you see them near your gambling dens, you must chase them away. What? So complicated? Lu Qinghong thought that there would still be more opportunities to go after the Yu family. Their daughter looked like a water sprite. If she were to become a prostitute, she would definitely do well. He observed them for a long time before planning to take action on the Yu family. He did not expect. Gu Jingze said from the side, if you don't want to chase him away, I will send my men there to do it. But I think it might affect your business greatly. You, quote. For the Gu household to do the chasing, that would be too much. Lu Qinghong was not happy, but he could only say to Gu Jingze, rest assured, Mr. Gu. The Yu family will never enter the Lu family's gambling dens in the future. You have my word. I will wait and see then, he replied, turning back and pulling Lin Che along. Lin Che looked back at the woman on the bed and then followed Gu Jingze out of the ward. Watching the two of them leave, the woman on the bed pushed Lu Qinghong away angrily. You useless thing, I got hit and you're brushing it off with 200,000. I can't accept it. Lu Qinghong slapped the woman, which stunned her as it was so unexpected. Did you know that I just saved your life? What? The woman looked at him pitifully. Lu Qinghong snorted, you would offend just about anybody. That was Gu Jingze. Do you dare to mess with the Gu family too? Gu Jingze. The woman was shocked as she held her cheek. Lu Qinghong muttered, I don't wish to do this either, but I can't sacrifice our lives just for pride, right? Couldn't you see that I was angry too? However, I definitely cannot handle him. We can only blame the Yu family for having this intention at this time. For them to actually be close to the Gu family, we have no choice but to stay away from them in the future. The woman listened and thought that this man was undoubtedly capable. Her heart grew jealous, yet had a sense of longing. It was too bad that a normal person would never be able to reach that high. With her standards, it was already good enough to snag Lu Qinghong. She would not dare to hope for a top-class family like the Gu family. After Lin Che settled the matter, she soon looked up Yu Minmin at her hotel. She had been staying in hotels for several days now. She switched hotels every day to prevent her father from finding her. Perhaps she was really used to it as she appeared just fine. It only looked like she lost a bit of weight. Lin Che said, the problem is settled. Sister Yu, you don't need to worry too much now. Yu Minmin looked at Lin Che, it's Gu Jingze helped, right? She knew that Lin Che would never be able to pull this off on her own. The Lu family was not a pushover. They definitely would not give up with just a few words. Lin Che nodded. Yes, Gu Jingze suppressed them. I just tagged along. Yu Minmin looked at her gratefully. Thank you. But, did you use money? She did not believe those people would be honest and not want money. Lin Che replied, it was not much. They took 200,000 as hush money. They won't let your father into their gambling dens in the future. Yu Minmin's face sank and then she looked up at Lin Che. I'll return you the money slowly with my salary. Thank you. Chapter 97. Should just sleep together in the future. Lin Che shook her head. Take it as the fortune of Mrs. Gu. It's all right. Yu Minmin smiled. If they manage to stop my father from entering their dens, perhaps the future will be brighter. You're getting more famous and my salary is increasing. Maybe I'll be able to pay you back in full soon. Yu Minmin raised her brow and looked at Lin Che. However, it seems like Gu Jingze really treats you well. Lin Che was taken aback. Gu Jingze was indeed a good man, but he was sometimes cold. Sometimes, he was cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Lin Che replied, but Gu Jingze. That guy is really hard to please. He's full of problems. I won't talk to you about it anymore, I have to go back. There's a birthday celebration in a few days. Lin Che returned from the hotel. She stood at the gate and looked at the strict security surrounding the Gu residence. She suddenly realized that she had been under the care of Gu Jingze all this time and felt slightly embarrassed. She was a troublesome woman. When it was time to sleep, Gu Jingze came out of the shower to see Lin Che looking embarrassingly at him. Gu Jingze lifted his head up. What are you staring at me for? Lin Che looked bashfully at Gu Jingze's face and said, I think. From today onwards, let's switch positions. You can sleep on the bed here while I sleep on the sofa. Gu Jingze looked at her strangely. Why? Lin Che reasoned, because you're so tall, it's bound to be uncomfortable for you. I'm small so sleeping here is just right for me. We should at least be taking turns. You sleep one night on the couch and then I'll sleep one night. If it's always you and we don't even know when we can divorce, it's not going to be fair to you. Gu Jingze's eyes flashed. He smiled at Lin Che and raised an eyebrow. So you're saying that you just can't bear to see me like this, right? This had nothing to do with that. Lin Che said, that's not what I meant. I'm just saying, never mind, if you like the sofa, you can have it. Lin Che's heart sank. She believed that it was not because she could not bear to see him sleep on the sofa. Why would she? It was just that she was always getting into trouble and she blamed herself for it. She simply felt bad. Lin Che glared at this ignorant Gu Jingze and turned towards the bed. However, Gu Jingze followed closely behind her and sat down on the bed with her. Lin Che looked at him and said, did you change your mind? Gu Jingze gazed at Lin Che and suddenly said, actually, the bed is big enough. We can both sleep here just fine. What? Lin Che thought she had misheard him. As Gu Jingze spoke, he embraced her and they both fell on the bed. It was a huge double bed, so it definitely had more than enough space for the two of them. But what was the meaning of them sleeping together? Lin Che struggled as she tried to get up. No, Gu Jingze. We can't sleep on the same bed. Her waist was pulled back by him despite her efforts. She fell back into his embrace. Gu Jingze lowered his head to look at her. Why? What are you afraid of? Are you scared that you won't be able to control yourself? Lin Che's face was starting to blush. What do you mean I can't control myself? You can't control yourself from coming onto me, Gu Jingze replied. Lin Che glared at him. Nonsense. How can I not control myself? Men are the ones who are wild at heart. Oh, if you're afraid that I can't control myself, you're thinking too much. I've been in the same room as you for so long and I've never touched you. I will definitely not lose it on a bed. You can rest assured. Lin Che just did not want to sleep on the same bed as him. No, I really can't, Lin Che said in a fluster. Still, Gu Jingze pressed her down, surrounding her entire body. Don't move and just go to sleep. As if she could go to sleep like that. What nonsense are you thinking about? Just go to sleep now, Gu Jingze said from behind. Lin Che was speechless. She could not move at all and could only breathe heavily there. She felt the man behind her slowly start to relax, but his eyes were wide awake and he was staring at her. It was only after some time did fatigue slowly creep in. Strangely enough, he was able to sleep like that. She was also getting very tired. It was not long before she fell asleep in that position too. The next day, Gu Jingze woke up energized as usual. Lin Che had a premonition that he was going to be in her bed forever. Perhaps the sofa was really uncomfortable for sleeping and he got sick of it. So even her vulgar sleeping habits did not deter him from sleeping on the bed. Thinking about it, perhaps it was only right to let him sleep there. Still, she intended to sleep on the sofa instead. Who knew they would end up sleeping together? The Panda Program Festival soon started. Because Lin Che was nominated for the Best Newcomer Award, the company made it very grand. They hired professionals to help Lin Che handle the award. Lin Che was already all dressed up at home. Looking at the dress's long skirt, it split all the way up, which Lin Che was not quite used to. However, it was the company's arrangement. They told her that there would be a lot of big shots at the awards. If Lin Che wanted to steal the spotlight, it was not going to be so easy. Thus, they specially chose an eye-catching dress for Lin Che to wear. However, Lin Che was not interested in stealing the spotlight at all. Attending a grand event like this made her satisfied. She looked at herself in the mirror and felt that something was still not right. Gu Jingze walked in to see her standing in front of the mirror adjusting herself. With her slim figure in a waisted dress, she looked extremely elegant and rather sexy. Gu Jingze narrowed his eyes as he walked over and asked, "What are you doing?" Lin Che turned to him, "Do you think I look weird like this?" Gu Jingze observed her. The black velvet dress revealed her fair and tender thigh, complementing each other perfectly. He said, "Weird in what way? You look fine." "Do you think I look good?" Lin Che asked. Gu Jingze smiled and moved closer. His voice was low and melodious, "I think you look even better without anything on." Lin Che's face flushed, "Get lost." Gu Jingze laughed and said, "You asked me." Lin Che's face was red, "Who knew you were such a gangster?" Gu Jingze smiled as he checked her out. He thought that slit in the dress was indeed not bad. It seemed like the dress would be so easy to strip. His heart beat a little faster. He quickly turned around and headed out. He wondered if he had been suppressing himself too much lately. Otherwise, he could not explain why his thoughts wandered off the track to a more evil place whenever he looked at her. Perhaps it had to do with his age, so his body instinctively wanted women. Lin Che turned to look at Gu Jingze, "Oh, right. We still have one ticket for today. If you're interested, you can go take a look." Gu Jingze snapped back to reality and looked at the ticket she passed to him. He took it and said, "Okay. If I have time, I'll go over." Chapter 98. Gu Jingze did not play his cards according to the rules again. Lin Che watched Gu Jingze leave silently, thinking that he must have finally left after he was done joking around with her. She dragged her long dress helplessly to attend the event. Just outside the Panda Program Festival area, the atmosphere was already different. Lin Che held her dress and walked in, accompanied by Yu Minmin. Yu Minmin told her, "You should have a big chance this time. Even if you don't win the award, at least we got to be here." "I don't think my odds are that high. There are so many popular shows this year and many roles were more outstanding than mine, especially those villainous roles. Everybody believes that bad women have good acting skills." "That's not for certain. Your role was outstanding too." Yu Minmin smiled and patted Lin Che's arm. Lin Che looked outside to see a newcomer actress from another popular show walking on the red carpet. The host introduced her energetically and said, "Wang Qingchu's performance in the TV series, Women's World is remarkable. Her portrayal of the antagonist has been engraved deeply in people's hearts. She is only 20 and is the youngest out of all the nominees." Lin Che watched as everyone looked at Wang Qingchu enter the scene. A roar of lights flashed everywhere. She shrugged and looked at Yu Minmin. As Lin Che mentioned, this was her competitor. At only 20 years old, she indeed looked radiant. Yu Minmin heard people beside her discussing openly, "It seems like she might win the award, she looks so proud and confident as if she already won." "Yes. Also, she recently got into a relationship with that Lu Kai." She has been leading the hot topics. I also think she'll win big tonight. Everyone looked at Lin Che. There was a hint of disdain in their eyes. Lin Che turned around and Yu Minmin spoke in a low voice, "Don't mind about what they think. In this industry, when there's nothing to talk about, people will stir up nonsense. Live and let them live." Lin Che nodded. "I'm fine, Sister Yu. I know." Just then, someone from behind hit the back of her head. "Ouch, who's that?" She turned back to see Gu Jingze, someone she had not seen in a long time. She had no idea when he caught up behind her. "What are you looking at?" he asked. Lin Che asked, "Gu Jingze, why are you here?" "I saw you standing here stupidly, so I came over to check." "How am I stupid?" Lin Che gently rubbed her head. Gu Jingze said, "Silly. Come on, let's not wait anymore. Walk with me." "Huh, aren't you supposed to come in later? I don't have anyone walking on the red carpet with me today. Am I not paired up with you now?" But Lin Che was pulled along by him and she stumbled forward. "But what? Let's go. I'll be with you." How could that be? Although she knew that Gu Jingze loved breaking the rules since they didn't matter to him, she always followed the rules in the industry. Gu Jingze was supposed to be a part of the finale walk. As he pulled Lin Che along, everybody looked on in envy. When it was his turn, he dragged Lin Che with him and placed her hand in the nook of his arm as they walked on the red carpet together. The host inside was shocked but was also aware that Gu Jingze often did not go by the book, so he reacted quickly. Everyone looked at the two of them on the red carpet enviously. The lights flashed non-stop and the host commented on how Gu Jingze abandoned the female lead and walked the red carpet with the supporting actress instead. It fed the rumor that was hyped up by everyone for a while. Yu Minmin watched them from behind and shook her head speechlessly. They finally walked to the end of the red carpet and went to their own seats. Sitting at the front, Wang Qingchu suddenly turned back to Lin Che and smiled, "We've been nominated together this time." Lin Che smiled along, "Indeed. I think your sword is pretty big this time. There's Gu Jingze and Mu Feiren after all. Even the supporting roles had Lin Li and the likes. It's impossible for newcomers like us. None of us are old. We're already lucky to be famous. Who knew we'd become the dark horses?" Even though the words were self-deprecating, her tone had a sense of pride in it. She implied that Lin Che's show was famous because of the stars in it while hers had no big stars. She hinted that she got here with her own effort. Lin Che smiled and said, "Really? I don't know why but no big celebrity wanted to take up that script of yours. It seemed like a good script." She really meant that the script was trash with no substance. Of course, if that was true, big stars would not take it. Wang Qingchu's face changed subtly. She glanced at Lin Che and groaned deep down in her heart. It was just because of Gu Jingze's backing. Just then, a number of people passed by and hurriedly greeted Lin Che when they saw her. She knew some of them while she had not met others before. She had not known or even seen some of them. Although Lin Che was always filming, she never joined any gathering in the circle. This festival was like an enormous gathering. All the celebrities that someone could think of were there. They all had a film this year. This was also the first time so many people actually knew who she was and there were people who wanted to know her. After being bombarded for a long time, the ceremony was finally about to start. Everyone returned back to their places. Lin Che let out a breath and said to Yu Minmin, "I exchanged a lot of WeChat numbers just now." Yu Minmin replied, "Of course. You're now a rising star. There are many people who want to know you." "Why would they want to know me?" Lin Che asked curiously. Yu Minmin said, "Networking is important in this industry. Who knows in the future if favors are going to be needed. You're famous now but the future is endless. Of course, they want to get to know you early." Okay, Lin Che never expected herself to be already of value to others. "I thought I was still new." Quote. "You're only new this year. In the future, you're going to get more famous." Yu Minmin smiled at her. "Who knows? With more newcomers, I don't know if I might get photographed on the beach." Because of her past experience, Lin Che did not feel optimistic. In the front, Wang Qingchu watched and snorted. She turned back. The people on her side were indeed a lot less. She muttered in her heart that it was only because of Gu Jingze. What was the big deal? She did not believe that Lin Che could rely on him forever. The awards ceremony soon started. Wang Qingchu left quietly. In the single room outside, someone gasped. Wang Qingchu gasped seductively, "President Chen, you promised. This year's Best Newcomer award was supposed to be mine." Yours. It's yours. You didn't see how arrogant that Lin Che was. She's making use of Gu Jingze's affection to steal tomorrow's headlines. You can't give the award to her. Fine, I won't give it to her. Baby, let's continue. Wang Qingchu fixed her makeup before returning. She looked at Lin Che behind in contempt, listening to Yu Minmin tell her what to say for her acceptance speech. She smiled even more and said, "Don't waste your time, Lin Che. I know your acting is not bad and you work hard, but this award is definitely mine." She turned around. "Even if you have Gu Jingze, it's useless. I can tell you this now. You have no idea what kind of backing I have." Chapter 99. Was she not supposed to treat? Wang Qingchu strutted back to her seat. Lin Che bit her lips and stared at Wang Qingchu's back. Her fists were clenched tightly. Yu Minmin never thought that Wang Qingchu would be so arrogant. Maybe she was too young to control her manners. Lin Che smiled coldly. "Is the Panda Awards about skills on the screen or off the screen? Seriously?" Yu Minmin pressed Lin Che's hand. "Don't worry. I'll check it out." As Yu Minmin got up and left, Lin Che sat there alone. She overheard some people behind her talking among themselves. "It looks like the Best Newcomer award is going to Wang Qingchu. But Lin Che is also not bad. Actually, I knew long ago that Wang Qingchu snagged a high flyer from the Panda program. I've seen them a few times already. Oh my god, then it really might be her. No wonder she's so full of herself, walking on the red carpet alone with such confidence. I guess it was already internally decided. Isn't that a pity for Lin Che? There's no choice." Lin Che had already decided not to hold high hopes in getting the award, but she still felt unhappy hearing that. If it was all based on effort, she would be content with the loss. However, she was really not satisfied to be beaten this way. The world was unfair and even more so in this industry. Lin Che simply did not like that something so unjust like this was happening to her. Was it not possible to fight fair and square based on popularity and skills? Wang Qingchu occasionally turned back to Lin Che, raising an eyebrow and smiling smugly. She looked so triumphant. Lin Che only looked ahead and quietly took deep breaths. Celebrities went up the stage one by one as the awards from the Music Award to the Motion Picture Award were given out. Lin Che stared in front. When it was time for the Best Newcomer Award, she silently sat up straight. Wang Qingchu turned back to her once again and smiled slightly at Lin Che. "No need to be so excited for it, this award is going to be mine. How unlucky for you to have met me this year. Better luck next time." Wang Qingchu covered her mouth as she pretended to suddenly recall something. "Oh, I just remembered. You only get one chance in your life for this award. You won't be a newcomer next year." Lin Che stared at Wang Qingchu. "At least I got here with my own efforts and ability instead of relying on whatever that goes on backstage." The backstage is also part of our capabilities, especially in this industry. However, you probably can't beat me in that aspect anyway. The entire hall hushed as the host began to speak. This year's newcomers are really an entirely new generation. Especially in the first half of the year, there was hit drama after hit drama. The second half of the year was full of surprises too. There were so many excellent works with excellent reputations and ratings. And thus, we are now announcing our best newcomer this year. After they rolled the video of all the nominees, the host smiled and said, "Who will be this year's best newcomer? Is it Wang Qingchu? Is it Gu Ningning? Can it be Situ Xing or Lin Che?" At that moment, another guest presenter looked across the entire audience down the stage. All the cameras were going back and forth between the four nominees. Lin Che sat there a little emotionless and stiff. She was still not used to being stared at. On the other hand, Wang Qingchu was full of confidence and looked right ahead at the cameras very proudly. Just then, the guest presenter smiled and announced, "This year's Best Newcomer award goes to Lin Che." Below, Lin Che heard her own name and was shocked. She sat there unable to move until the people beside her nudged her and she quickly got up. Still a little dazed, she could barely see anything with the spotlight shining right into her face. She got up on the stage and took the award from the guest presenter. Below, Wang Qingchu had already stood up, but when she heard Lin Che's name, her face turned green. Looking in front, she held her award and stood behind the lectern. She nervously held the microphone and smiled as she said, "Thank you, creators of Swords of Love. Thank you, director, for giving me this opportunity to play such an important role. And also, thank you to my fellow colleagues and crew for teaching me so much. Thank you all so much." Wang Qingchu could not listen anymore. She got up, not caring about anyone staring at her, and stomped out. Outside, she walked all over the place until she found President Chen at the back. She yelled furiously, "What's going on with you? You said that you would give it to me. How could you? You dare lie to me? Are you toying with me?" She was so embarrassed. She talked herself up so much full of confidence but got nothing in the end. I didn't want to either. I really wrote your name. Even if everyone thinks Lin Che is better, I still believe in you. But today, President Chen said quietly, I can only say that Lin Che has a backing far stronger than yours. I can't do anything about it. What? Honestly, there was no other way. I also wish she wasn't such a heavyweight. However, I really can't touch this person. I can't help you even if I wanted to. Wang Qingchu heard him and was stunned. Her face scrunched up in anger. Very soon, Lin Che got off the stage and saw Yu Minmin. She said in surprise, I honestly never thought that this award would be mine. God, what is going on? Yu Minmin smiled and replied, it seems like there's still some fairness in this world. Lin Che nodded her head vigorously. She could not conceal the delight on her face. Yu Minmin said, remember to treat us. Of course, I will treat you all. Heh. The awards ceremony ended. As Lin Che was walking out, her phone rang. She took it out and saw that it was Gu Jingze. She hurriedly answered the call, Gu Jingze. Hearing the joy in her voice, Gu Jingze smiled peacefully, did it end? Yes, it just ended. I'm waiting for you outside. Come out. Ah, really? Of course. You won, so shouldn't you treat me to a meal? Gu Jingze asked. Okay, of course, I'll treat you out. Lin Che hung up and ran outside to see Gu Jingze's car there. Lin Che hopped in and excitedly handed her trophy for Gu Jingze to see. Gu Jingze smiled and said, congratulations to you. Lin Che said in amazement, I still thought that it was strange how everyone said Wang Qingchu knew someone formidable, so the award would be hers. In the end, it was still mine. Gu Jingze smiled at her, that proves you know someone even more formidable. What? Gu Jingze did not continue and already started driving, let's go. You owe me a meal. Chapter 100. I like to share my things with you. The Lin household. Lin Li watched the replay of the telecast of the segment when Lin Che went on stage to accept her reward. She was so angry that her face got green. The spotlight followed her as she walked down the stage. She was surrounded by people congratulating her and reporters going up to her to interview her. She radiated with pride. Lin Li huffed angrily and swiped the cup in her hand. Lin Che actually got an award. Han Qiang watched as she tried to comfort Lin Li, it's fine. Now that she has Gu Jingze behind her, of course, things will be different. Wait until you marry into the Qin family. It'll be the same for you. Lin Li gritted her teeth and tried to believe that was true. However, between the Qin family and the Gu family, there was some difference. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. Meanwhile, Gu Jingze took Lin Che to a restaurant. Lin Che exclaimed, wow, this looks like an expensive place. Do you seriously want me to treat you? Gu Jingze looked at her, you won an award today, so shouldn't you be treating me? Lin Che pouted, but I didn't think you would pick such an expensive place. This was a Chinese restaurant, but anyone who saw the outside would have assumed that this was a high-end restaurant. The entrance was beautifully decorated and there were few people inside. It seemed like they all had private rooms. Each room had a name beautifully calligraphed on the door. The staff saw the two of them enter and quickly bowed their heads to greet them politely. They smiled so naturally and their makeup was pleasant. The staff must have undergone extremely strict training. Mr. Gu, would you like your usual room? We always keep it reserved for you. Okay. Gu Jingze brought Lin Che in. As they walked, he said, the food here is very good. Once you try it, you'll know. And they do such a clean job, so it's very homely. Lin Che retorted, if you want to eat home-cooked food so bad, why are we at such an expensive place? We should go home so I can cook for you. Gu Jingze looked at her scornfully, if I let a klutz like you cook for me, I'll end up eating slag. No way, the last time was an accident. Gu Jingze refused to believe her. Furthermore, he specially brought her here, but she was not even appreciative of this. What an ignorant woman. I come here a lot. The food is fantastic, you'll know once you try it. He truly wanted to get her approval. In his heart, he wanted her to like the things that he did. From the start, he thought of the good food at this place, and for some reason, he wanted to share it with her. However, she still complained that it was expensive. Lin Che followed him in and they sat down. She could see the lake right outside. This must have been the best spot out of the whole restaurant. Gu Jingze was responsible for ordering the dishes since he was familiar with this place. He would certainly know which dishes were good. He ordered a table's worth of food. Lin Che could feel her pockets crying and her heart bleeding. It felt so expensive. After a while, the food arrived. Lin Che looked at the food. They looked so appetizing and delicious. Try it. Gu Jingze was like a noble Persian cat that ate with such graceful and slow movements. Lin Che did not care about table manners. She took and ate whatever was good. They were indeed delicious. She started taking big bites and gulping down her drink. She happily ate. Gu Jingze said quietly, eat slower. Lin Che replied, it tastes better with bigger bites. Gu Jingze shook his head, it's not good for your digestion. Lin Che said, you eat to taste food. If you eat for your digestion, you might as well be eating porridge every day. You only know how to spout nonsense, Gu Jingze glared at her. However, it was undeniable that seeing her enjoy food like that, he somehow felt a sense of accomplishment. It was as if he got a major approval for what he liked. Gu Jingze looked joyful as he watched her eat. Slowly, see, you got food all over your mouth now, he reached out his hand and wiped the sides of her mouth. I'll wash after eating. Hey, you eat too. I haven't seen you move, Lin Che talked with her mouth full. At the same time, on the outside, Mo Hilling entered the restaurant with her good friends. The people around Mo Hilling have always envied her. She had been close to the Gu family since she was young and everybody knew that Gu Jingze was her boyfriend all along. They would often hear her showing off, but even when she showed off, they could not say anything. Everyone could only continue to envy her. So since she was young, she was always the center of attention. And because she was childhood sweethearts with Gu Jingze, nobody could displace her position. Even until now, although Gu Jingze was already married, it was a secret marriage. Not many people outside their circle knew about his marriage. Furthermore, they did not hold a wedding ceremony, so nobody knew that Gu Jingze had another woman by his side. Hilling, it's so expensive here. We always eat here and you always pay for us. I feel bad, her friend said politely. Mo Hilling could not conceal the pride in her tone. She generously said, it's all right. There's a room here that Gu Jingze always has reserved for him. Every time we come here, we just need to use that room and all the expenses will be paid for by Gu Jingze. Really, Gu Jingze is so generous to you for letting you use his personally reserved room. These are nothing to Jingze, Mo Hilling said as she strutted in with her high heels. Everybody behind chimed in, that is true. To the Gu family, that bit of money takes mere minutes to earn back. Hilling, I'm so envious of you. Mo Hilling raised her head proudly. The staff immediately recognized Mo Hilling. She came here often, so everybody knew. Looking at Mo Hilling, the staff quickly greeted, Miss Mo. Mo Hilling requested, the same room. There's 4 of us today. As she spoke, she gravitated towards the room. However, the staff hurriedly held her back and looked inside with a hint of worry. She said shyly, sorry, Miss Mo, but Mr. Gu is using that room tonight. What? Mo Hilling asked. Jingze is here, I'm going to look for him. The staff quickly stopped her from taking another step, but Mr. Gu was with a guest. Mo Hilling was shocked. Her friends felt Mo Hilling's embarrassment and tried to defuse the situation. Let's go to another room. They are all the same. Maybe he's having a business meeting. Mo Hilling could only force a dry smile and let her friends go to another room. However, she stared intensely at the room with suspicion in her eyes.